And here we go. So before we begin, I just want to start with a quote to backtrack just slightly from our last lecture. So our last lecture, law number 37, was create compelling spectacles. And I came across this quote today by a French actor. You know, I mispronounce his name, it's because I don't know him. His name's Alain Delon. Alain Delon. And he said this: "I've suffered often, I've been wrong sometimes, but I loved. It was I who lived, and not this fictional being created by my pride," and it says ennui. That's what I'd want as, and I think the interviewer asked, what do you want like to be remembered as? Like your epitaph. And so I love that so much. I've suffered often, I've been wrong sometimes, but I loved. It was I who lived, and not this fictional being created by my pride. And law number 37, to recap quickly, was create compelling spectacles. And I said, be careful when that spectacle is you. And that quote reminded me of, if you've ever seen the movie Good Will Hunting, there's a scene where Matt Damon is having this altercation with this fucking nerd at the bar, and he says, yeah, well, you're gonna be serving fries to my kids on our ski trip, like to Aspen or something. He said, yeah, maybe, but at least I won't be unoriginal. At least I'll have lived my life with the courage to be myself, right? As Alain describes, as flawed, right? Not perfect, but motherfucker, I was me. And I just really love that. And so just wanted to share that. And I just wanted to start with that recap. Now, law number 38, and then the quick update is my mouth is feeling so much better from yesterday. I woke up today and there was something that came out. I don't know if it was like what they had sort of sewn in on top, but that aggravation, whatever, it was like a little, looked like a small sponge, but it was obviously, you know, soaked in my blood. That garbage is out. And then I just think the stitches that are torn are in a more comfortable position aside my cheek, so that every time I chew something on this side, it's not tearing. So I only had to take one 800 milligram, Advil this morning. So night and fucking day to feeling. So is that good? Do we start off well? Do you want me to reread the quote again? The whole point, before we go into law number 38, is to fall in love with yourself, man. To fall in love with you, not a character that you're pretending to be. I saw another video by no coincidence. It was by Captain Jack Sparrow. No, it was by Johnny Depp. And he said, you know what most people want is to be themselves. He said, but they can't. They have to follow the next person in line. And he said, I would rather be on the other side of that system, of that conformity, of that life of fucking slavery, of death to your soul, death to who you are. And so I just think it's fucking important, man, to share, especially with what we're going to talk about today. And one thing that we're talking about today is think as you like, but behave like others. And the warning of this law of not, it says think as you like, but behave like others. What happens when you speak how you actually think? And then we're going to talk about Socrates, who was imprisoned and sentenced to death for impiety, corrupting the youth. Can you imagine such a sentence? For daring people to think for themselves. How terrifying. Because what would happen in a society that you're trying to control if they dared to think for themselves? They'd look around and they would challenge the very systems you have in place, because they'd be awake, right? So they would see that they're in a glass bowl. If you imagine a fish in a glass bowl, the greatest prison is the one you don't know that you're in. If you've ever seen the movie The Truman Show, where he sails to the water and then crashes into the fucking set, after he had that epiphany that this is all bullshit, right? If you've ever seen the movie A Bug's Life, where he's like, well, there was that one ant that stood up to me. Yeah, but it's just one. We could forget about him. And then he throws the nut, their storehouse of food. How did that feel? Nothing. And then he does, okay, how about this one? Are you kidding me? And then he dumps all of them. And he said, this isn't about food. This is about keeping these people in line. Because if they knew that, this quote from the movie, that they outnumbered us 1,000 to 1, and if they ever stumbled upon that truth, our way of life as we know it would be forfeit. So understand that when people are sentenced to death, when these people who, challenge you to open your eyes and think, such as Tarek Hawks, not that this is fucking foreshadowing anything that I don't want to happen in the future, there's a recurring theme of what happens to those people who encourage you to think for yourself, right? Who encourage you to open your fucking eyes, to look at all the systems that are in place, the very systems that are poisoning you, imprisoning you. I saw another great video today. And it was this guy talking about the whole game of how they keep us in this slavery state, right? Which he was really hammering the point of vibration and frequency, which is when you wake up, when you ascend to a higher level of consciousness. We haven't read Power versus Force yet, but in that book, it talks about the different energy frequency levels. The highest one is enlightenment, which is authenticity. It's you as yourself, like that quote from Alain Delon, right? I'm not perfect, I've made mistakes, but I loved. Not a false, fictitious character did I play in my life, right? But they have the system set up to where they poison your food, they keep you perpetually distracted, they have you scrolling, they flood your dopamine receptors, they keep you under LED lights, sleep deprived, working a shitty job with wage that is just over enough, if that, to pay your bills, and if it's not, then you just go into debt. Why? Because of the energy frequency it keeps you in. It doesn't keep you in joy and gratitude and enlightenment and peace. It doesn't keep you in any of the high vibrating frequencies, right? Where you, in that state, realize your power. It keeps you in the low ones of shame, especially when you fall into the comparison trap of social media and you see everybody having this, wonderful, adventurous, exotic life. And you're just like, I don't have that life. I don't have that beautiful partner. I don't have that money. I don't have that freedom. Something must be wrong with me. Okay. So they keep you in this state of shame or anger, right? Especially when you're awake. My awakenings happen from just observation of my surroundings. I've shared this before, but one of my first jobs that I got outside of graduating, after I left the personal training studio that I worked for, I worked at a school district, and I did the math on my overhead expenses, which if you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's another one that will, sort of give you the red pill. And I said, wait a second, I'm netting, it was like $3,000. My overhead expenses are between $3,300 and $3,500, and I'm not spending anything lavishly, right? It's just to fund my bodybuilding goals. So what I would spend more than rent was just protein, just food. And I said, just to make ends meet, I have to do a side hustle. I have to do a side business. I have to train clients on the side or do online coaching, personal training, online coaching. And I said, if I don't do something, I'm spinning my wheels. I'll be in the same place 20 fucking years from now. And sure enough, I look at my coworker, who is 20 years older than me, but looks 40 years older than me. And I look at them who've aged horrifically by sitting in a state of cowardice, rationalizing why it's okay that they forfeited all their things, all their goals, all their dreams, all their ambitions. And she would spin me her victim stories and her narrative all the fucking time. How I don't really want that, I don't really want this. It's like, no. You don't want to do the action required and the courage required to pursue this, and this. I learned that from Grant Cardone when people try to diminish and shortchange their lack of pursuit towards success. It's like, oh, I don't really want that. I don't really want freedom. I don't really want abundance. I don't really want to provide more or offer more value to other people or to my family. It's like, no, you're too much of a pussy to do the actual work involved in realizing those things. But we don't want to talk about that. Instead of, oh, I don't have time, or I'm too busy, or this isn't my dream. No. It's not a priority to you. Because if it was, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, would we? So it's all just fascinating food for thought when you actually get those red pills and you sort of open your eyes. Psychedelics have helped me as well. Because psychedelics allows you, say, for example, if you take mushrooms, it allows you to see the world in the absence of systems. So you get to just be. It forces you to forfeit any thoughts outside of the present and responsibilities and obligations. As in, when you're on a mushroom trip, you can't think of when your rent is due, or that you have this car payment due, or that insurance is coming, this bill, this expense, this stress, this worry. It brings you here. It brings you in here, actually. I've gotten the greatest clarity and insight and introspection from experiences with, say, psychedelics. I'm not saying you have to go the non-sobriety route. Meditation works just as well, but I want to insist on this idea, not because I'm trying to get myself, I'm not trying to shout myself. Have you ever seen that from South Park? I'm Chris Hansen. You just need peace, and you just need calm, and you just need serenity and clarity. I was thinking about it today because being on paid administrative leave right now for my work, I said, what a gift from God, because especially as it's resonating, you can see it in these videos. You can tell that I'm well rested, even if I have bags right now under my eyes. I took a little bit of caffeine and I haven't gone to the gym today. Today's a rest day, even though I'm not supposed to be training while my teeth are healing. But I'm getting like an abundant amount of sleep. And when I wake up, I'm not rushing to get out of bed, I'm reading. And after I've read, and I'm reading with piano, like soft piano, nature music, if you just YouTube, calm, relaxing, serene music. And then even after I'm done with that, maybe I'll like eat a little something, and then I'll just be laying down, I'll just be thinking. And just, it's so meditative, it's so therapeutic. And then if I want to just relax and I've never, number one, been in a position where I've been able to have this much time to heal, but also been in this personal development of my, say, spiritual and emotional path and journey to give myself permission to have all of this rest. And that was another thing that I was thinking about, is how far have we come to not harbor guilt or shame for allowing myself to be non-productive 24 hours of the fucking day. And I'm just able to sit there and to be. And the fascinating part, that when you're actually there, when you actually have the ability to think, you have so much clarity about creation. And when you're in a state of survival, and a state of lack, and a state of scarcity that the systems in place force you to be in, you can't be in creation at the same time. You can't be in your creative, harmonious state when you're in lack, when you're in scarcity. And that's where they don't want you. Because when you're creative, when you're innovative, when you have thoughts, when you have ideas, those thoughts and ideas, as we're going to discuss in this lecture, are dangerous. Those are dangerous ideas. Those are dangerous thoughts. Why? Because those thoughts could be of escaping the enslavement, or asking yourself the open-ended questions that Robert Kiyosaki insists. How can I be free? How would I be able to sustain myself? What could I do to monetize what I'm passionate about? How could that possibly come to pass? Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous questions when you're this society at large trying to keep you as a good, docile cattle. Think of it. You're of no use to the farm if you're not on the farm for them to take your milk, for them to take your wool, for them to take your meat, should they please. Does any of that make sense, right? And so that's the beauty about it. And you'll never know this unless you're in a place where you actually have the time, the ability, the peace, the clarity to fucking think. Because when you do, oh my God, it's so easy to be creative, to have ideas for your business, to think about how this dream is going to come into fruition. And I did this recently. I did this the last couple days because right now, as you know, I'm in this transitionary period of my life. Because I escaped the rat life. I remember the day. It was January 18th was the Monday, and I got paid for that. But I think it's MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day. You get it off working school districts in California. That was Monday, so 17th, 16th, 15th was my last day in the rat life at the school district I was working at. January 15th, 2021. That's when, that was the end of the 2-week notice that I gave. That I'm pursuing rat life, I'm pursuing entrepreneurship, I'm going all in on this dream. And I cashed out my CalPERS, which is my retirement account at the time, and the balance was I think I netted 12 grand. And I sold my Mustang, which my apartment lease with my brother ended, I believe, in March, end of March of 2021. So I actually lived in that car for 7 weeks. I lived in all of April and half of May. And I did the math on the car payment, the insurance, the gas that I was requiring. And I said, I could live in hostels in Europe for cheaper than what it's costing me to be fucking homeless. So I booked a one-way flight, this was during COVID, to Albania, because Albania and Macedonia, countries I had never heard of, were the only ones open to American citizens. And so I sold my car, I booked a one-way flight, my retirement cashed out, and I left California behind, not knowing if or when I would ever come back. Did a 6-month Euro trip, ran out of money, and then literally had to close a sale for someone who it didn't end up working out for me training them online. But I was able to get funding from that person who I had trained back in California for a very long time. I think it was more than a year. And that was enough to afford a one-way flight. And I think I booked it as a round trip, but I never obviously took the flight back to, it like had a connection in like New York, and then it got me into like Ohio. And I spent 2 days, this was in November of 2021 when I came back. And I love that I'm sharing this. I've shared it like a bit before, but it's cool to tell you guys how I've gotten to the place that I'm at right now. I spent 2 days in a hotel in Ohio that my little sister put me up in because I literally had no money. And my phone got stolen in Amsterdam by a Romanian my fucking alarm went off, and I went to the bathroom, and I come back out, and he was in the bunk underneath me. Super sketchy motherfucker. Like, way too old to be staying in hostels. He had to have been like in his 50s. And fucking took my phone and then left. And the staff had all his info. We had his like phone number and his ID that they scanned, so we knew his name. It was just, and then I went to the Dutch police, who Dutch people told me their police are a joke, and I didn't really believe them or have any experience. But then I went to their police station, and they literally proved to me that sentiment of what a fucking joke that they are. Like, what do you want us to do about it? Sounds like a personal problem. And it's just like, you fucking little rats. Anyway, but terrifying, because you rely so much heavily on your phone when you're traveling. So to travel for an entire month, having to go to fucking libraries and use like Google Maps, but you're writing down directions to like get to and from. I would go into a computer store, pretend like I was shopping for a computer to send fucking emails. To communicate with people, or to try to meet someone who I knew who was living like in the city of Barcelona or whatever. But what a fucking ride, man. Anyway, so in Ohio, after I'm back in November 2021, I stayed there for a couple nights, thanks to my little sister, who also bought me a new phone, the one I currently have. And then I went to, my sister picked me up, and she was working in Illinois at the time, and so I spent 4 weeks with her in a shared hotel room, and then for 4 weeks, and then I literally would just get all of the food that I would eat for the day from the morning free breakfast at the hotel. So I'd go to the hotel, and I'd get plate after plate after plate of eggs and bagels and muffins, and because I had lost like 20 or 30 pounds from my bodybuilding journey when I was abroad over that time, because it got to the point where I just like literally couldn't afford food. And I get teased about it by people who I met. Leia, awesome German girl, she would say, like, all you eat are chips and like just garbage food. And it's like, no. All I could afford was the biggest bag of the cheapest, salted chips and like a banana and bread. So bread would be like €1 for like an entire loaf of French bread. A banana would be like less than 20 cents. And then chips would be like $1 or $2 for an entire bag. So it was a calorie thing for me. And I would just drink water. So I was able to live off of like $1 to $3 fucking dollars per day towards the end there. But as a result, I had lost so much weight. So I'm in that, doing that prep program, that transformation for those 4 weeks. And then finally my sister gets her work back in Kentucky, where her apartment is. And so I go from that hotel bed to her floor. I was on a blow-up mattress, but the floor was more comfortable, for 8 weeks in Kentucky. And then I finally was able to have the means to fly to California in February of 2022. And then I slept on my brother's floor, because the apartment that we were going to get was going to be a 2-bedroom. That lease wouldn't start until April of that year. And so I slept on his floor, his floor in his one room. He was renting a room from this place. For 5 weeks, I was eating tuna, pouring my fucking tuna can out in the sink of the bathroom, like the tuna juice. This was before packets were a known thing to me. And then I went from that floor to a shared apartment, but this whole time I'm keeping the dream of entrepreneurship and rat life alive. And then we got a 2-bedroom apartment, my brother and his friend Vinny, that he knew from the gym. And it was a 2-bedroom for 3 people. I lived in the closet. So it was a big closet, and it was enough to fit like a full-size blow-up mattress, but it would sink with my body weight to the floor, to the hardwood floor in that closet. And I lived there for 13 months, no car, taking the bus. And then it got to the point where I could not make more doing pre-workout sales, so the business of Rat Life, or personal training, coaching, everything that I was trying to do, fucking t-shirt sales, ebook sales, like whatever I could do to make ends meet. I couldn't make more than that to pay off the debt from the purchase order that we did for the pre-workout to begin with of 600 units. And so what happened was I said I need to get a job. And so I ended up getting a job. No school district would give me an interview. My old place that I left, they wouldn't rehire me or reinstate me, even though in the interview process, I knew I was fucked when I walked in, because it was people wearing, like, this was 2 years after COVID, like, had, 2 years deep into it. They were wearing like these double big ass, duck masks. And I said, I'm fucked. Like that, the district was so left. It was so radically woke left, fucking idiots. And that's pretty much what all school districts are, particularly in California. It's just, you can't even openly say that you're conservative. You'll find out very quickly you're the fucking minority there. And as it's the biggest hypocrisy when it comes to DEI, because they like to, put on the guise of virtue and we're all equal and all this, and no, they're looking for their own kind and their own light. They're fucking the biggest hypocrite faggots. Anyway, so would not get rehired. No one would give me an interview. And so Amazon was the only place that didn't require one, and you were literally hired upon application. So think about what a failure I feel like. Number one, to get a job, because I felt like I was throwing in the towel of entrepreneurship. I said, me getting a job, my belief system was that's me giving up on rat life. And so that was such a fucking mental hurdle to overcome. Luckily, I had some Leah, a Swedish woman I met in Serbia who lives in Sweden. She was such a gift to me in her counsel, saying this isn't a failure. Amanda, amazing woman, amazing mentor, British woman who I met in Croatia. This isn't a failure. You're doing this for your vision. You're doing this for rat life. You're doing this for your dream, for what you believe in. This is a means to that end. I had those great voices, talking to me during that time. And so I got that job, no car, taking a bus pass. This is a graveyard shift at Amazon, making minimum wage, if that, working double shifts. Sometimes I'd work, like 36 fucking hours within 2 days and get 15 minutes of sleep. I shared this in a previous lecture. I'd go home, not set an alarm, I'd set a timer for like 15 minutes, and it was about a mile walk each way to the bus stops over this fucking humongous hill that went over the freeway. Talk about living the rat life. And just enough to close my eyes for a second, to wake up, to go back, because the last bus left at 11:45, but my shift didn't start till 3 a.m. and it was all the way in Irvine. I lived in Irvine, but it was like miles. It wasn't walkable. I had to take a long ass bus ride in order to get there. And so, where your managers are, these acne-ridden fucking high school kids, and you have a UCLA degree, and it was the most humbling experience, to say the least, but also it taught me indefatigability. So everything that you're going through, it's all part of your hero's journey. And so when I say that quote, my unmatched perspicacity, we talk about our ability to perceive, to think for yourself, to open your fucking eyes, coupled with sheer indefatigability. Like when I was trying to diet as well, but I was overworked, sleep deprived. I lost so much fucking weight. I was walking around like a skeleton. I remember a coworker said, "You don't look good." And I said, "Thanks, man. I appreciate the confidence boost." And then they doubled down. They're like, "Yeah, you really don't." It's like, fucking hell. And so I did that for 8 weeks, and it taught me just to be a zombie, work ethic, and if you've ever seen the show Dragon Ball Z, the highest form of enlightenment on your spiritual journey, of ascending as a Saiyan, is to achieve what they called autonomous ultra instinct, to where your actions are in complete harmony. You don't have to think, and you're in flow state, as high of flow state as you can possibly be. And it sounds silly, but when I was on the sort of line, you're so in that state to where you're not even thinking, and everything is just, there's no time delay between thought and action. And so it was actually a really cool experience to be in that sort of flow state, and I got that actually experience from that graveyard shift, fucking minimum wage if that, working at Amazon. And I did that for 8 weeks, and then I booked a flight to Brazil, got jumped when I was in Brazil, came back to no job, and then my apartment lease was about to end. Apartment lease, right before it ended, I took my mom to Europe with just pennies on the dollar, and I had no urgency to pay my brother the debt back for the purchase order that we charged on his credit card, because he didn't put any effort into the sales or the revenue generation. So his lack of urgency towards, improving the business perfectly reciprocated my lack of urgency for paying off the debt. So instead, I always had the mentality that I had no qualms with going into financial decay towards my mom, who sacrificed a lifetime to raise 5 kids by herself from a horrifically abusive father. And I said, for someone who I don't know how long she's going to live for, and so I spent like thousands of dollars to take her to. I took her. That was the second Euro trip I was able to take her on. We went to 5 different countries, and came back, apartment lease ended, and then I went to I got another job at a school district for just like 5 weeks, and my rock bottom. And this is when I'm living in a hostel now. So my apartment lease ends. I have nowhere to live, and so the girl who I sold the training session to get a flight back from Barcelona to the United States. We both knew a guy mutually from the gym, and he had a business where he turned his house into a hostel, and he appreciated and respected that I had sort of helped and coached this girl, not just in the gym, but through her physically, possibly also sexually abusive relationship that she was going through. And so that's how I was able to get that. And it's fascinating when you talk about your hero's journey. Every person that you meet, everyone has a purpose. You don't meet anybody on accident. No interaction. We learned this from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. How seemingly insignificant isn't woven into your fate's destiny, into what is written for your nature's design, for your story. So beautiful, because had I never, you could backtrack the whole thing. Had I never met this person, this wouldn't happen. Had I never, trained this person or helped coach this person, then I didn't get that place to live. Had I not lived there, I wouldn't have had him kind of bullshit my reference for how much I was paying at that place in order to get approved for this apartment. So it's all woven. But I had that job it was 5 weeks, making fucking nothing, working at a school district. And my rock bottom was at EDC. And I used money that my sister gave me because I had no money. I couldn't afford money for groceries. I used that to buy ecstasy for this festival at EDC in Las Vegas. And then my rock bottom was when a woman who was also there, who used to be my best friend, who I had changed, I'd given so much to her in her life. I coached her out of her physically abusive relationship. I got her in the best shape of her life. I taught her financial literacy. I just offered so much love and healing. We dated for a time. She was my best friend. At that place, I had never been spoken to or been treated with this paramount level of disrespect by anybody. And that's when I said, and I came back from that festival, had lost my phone at the Tiesto set. So this is the second time losing my phone. As a result of, not being sober, from drugs used, that was purchased with, grocery fucking money from my older sister, while I'm taking the bus with these, fucking homeless and tweakers, and then going to this hostel that I lived in Santa Ana with drug addicts and alcoholics, and one of the other tenants was a prostitute. I said, this isn't fucking cute anymore, and I took no pride in my appearance, and I said, I'm changing my fucking life. And I remember washing my dishes like Tupperware in the sink. Cockroaches were coming out of it. And I said, this is your fault. And I went like this. And I said, but you know what? What's to come is your fault too. And it was like, I'm getting it all together. So I got, better clothes. I got a car, even though I didn't have a new job yet. I said, I'm getting a new fucking job. I got the job that that I'm currently on investigation for, and that it was an abusive one, obviously. For what would be 18 months of bullying and harassment and verbal, emotional, mental abuse. But the whole reason I'm sharing all of this is I have been on the hero's journey, the entrepreneurial dream vision the whole time. What started out as a business for fitness, for pre-workout, for what I thought rat life was then, because the mantra has never changed. And we learned this, it's not in the university yet, but it's Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I have it here that I could show you that. We learned that the why of your vision, your purpose, what God has called you to do, that never changes. But the what will change, right? So my whole why has always been, it starts with belief and the courage to pursue. I got that mantra a little bit from Walt Disney. I altered his slightly. He said, all dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. And it's very true, but it starts with belief. You have to believe that it's possible. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you're worthy of it. And then the courage to pursue. And then you could tie that into the Winston Churchill quote, the courage to pursue, the courage to try, the courage to fail, the courage to not lose enthusiasm from one failure to the next. To not view failure as failure, but it's learning. And you do that over and over again until. The courage to pursue and not give up until breakthrough, till you make it. And so, if you've ever read the book The Alchemist, I'm literally have and are living out Santiago's whole journey in real time. He went and he worked for this crystal shop, and as if he gave up on the woman that he wanted, on, you know, his quest, his noble quest to go, you know, find the treasure by the pyramids in Egypt. And he worked in this fucking crystal shop. He returned to the rat life because he used to be a shepherd, which is an awesome analogy that starts the book, where he's in Spain and he's looking at these animals, literally the cattle that I discussed earlier in this lecture. And they're, you know, so willing to be obedient and docile, and for the safety net, for the check that you get, you know, when you're working in the rat life. You know, these people, they're so willing to fall in line and to comply for fucking scraps that I'm giving them. And he said, and at any time, if they're so generous, they give me their wool if I want it, they give me their milk, and if I so desired, they give me their meat. And it's so true. You will blink and you'll realize that you gave 40 fucking years making someone else rich. You gave 40 years of your life out of loyalty to a place that would replace you in a fucking week if you drop dead tomorrow. They don't give a fuck about you. You are a line item on their payroll. People don't live their life with that awareness, with that cognizance, understanding that they sell you on, I'll be happy when. No, once I pay off my student loans. No, once I pay off my mortgage. No, once I have my CalPERS to this and I'm vested. No, once I'm able to retire, and then I'll be free and happy and at peace 40 fucking years from now. It's all a lie. It's all a distraction to keep you as a good, fearful cattle. And you realize when you pursue entrepreneurship, dude, and I've been fucking homeless. I remember when I didn't have money when I was abroad, I was in Slovenia. I didn't have the fucking $15 to pay for a night of living. And so I pulled an all-nighter outside in the fucking rain, came back like in the morning to just take a nap on the couch before the owner woke up. And then you put a deposit to get like a small towel for like €1, and I had stolen it. I just didn't get my deposit back. It was like a fucking hand cloth. I go and visit Leia, who's living in Ham, Germany. And a tree falls on the train tracks. And so it's delay. I missed the last connection. And then in the city that I was in, I forget the name of it, there was no hotel open, no taxi you could book. She didn't have a car to pick me up. And so I slept. It was too freezing to sleep outside, but there's an elevator to get you from the bottom level of the, you know, train station level to the top. That's how you got from, because you would take this like underground sort of tunnel to get to the other side of the tracks, to get to the, you know, if you're going in the opposite direction. It was warmer to sleep in the elevator. So I slept in the fucking elevator with this tiny towel that in every layer of clothing that I traveled with. I put them all on in this little towel that I took from that fucking hostel that I, you know, spent a night in for free from pulling an all-nighter. And, you know, so my point is that on your hero's journey, dude, you're going to get bruised and you're going to get bloodied. When I got jumped in Brazil, you're going to get fucking decimated. Like, God will take you to the edge, because that's the price of freedom. It really is, dude. You have to be willing to bet on yourself and give your life. And I've made that decision. I've made that resolve. And God knows it. Universe, source knows it. Like, and there's a good quote that I learned from Jim Rohn, that when a man is resolved, the universe, God, the fates, they all hold a conference and conspire. And they say, with a wary voice, a wary submission, we best step aside, for we are powerless against this kind of resolve. And it's so true. And it's like, I'm willing to die for this. I'm willing to die for what I believe in, which is the whole mantra of rat life. Anyone can escape. Anyone can live free. Anyone can live free. It's an education problem, I learned. It's not a pre-workout problem, even though all the virtues that you exalt in the gym, discipline, patience, work ethic, heart, how to overcome failure, how to be alone, those all transcend. So you can apply all of those into your business, into your academics, into your relationships. So I live and die by those virtues, that the gym is the cornerstone of what we're doing, because without your health, as I'm learning now with my teeth in real time, you have nothing. And you could have all the, materialistic things in the world, or all the, people or pleasures, but all you want to do, the unhealthy person only has one fucking desire, and it's to be healthy again. And so I share all that to say that it'll take you to the fucking edge, man. If you pursue the life, the path that is not traveled, the narrow, the path to heaven that looks like fucking hell, that is hell, you'll find that it's going to take everything that you got, man. It's the loneliest path. We learned that in the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by O.G. Mandino. Entrepreneurship, pursuing a business, pursuing your dream, becoming your own boss, not submitting to another fucking person. I like that quote from Troy, Troy will never submit to a foreign ruler. And I thought about it. With all my potential and capability and intellect, in what fucking world could I bend the knee and dim my shine and be a subservient fucking peasant that is so willing to accept the scraps of life for a lifetime and the one life that I have, right? How can I justify that? How can I explain that to my family, to my kids, that this is all that I'm, good enough for? This is all my value. This is all my worth. This is all I'm willing to work for when I have the potential for this. When I have the potential to give that much more to others, right? From the quote from Tony Robbins, life is not about what you get, it's about who you become and what you're able to give now that you've become more. So if you don't pursue your potential, it's quite selfish to all the people that you say that you care about, because you could be giving them so much more. Resources, value, skills, knowledge, wisdom. But you're choosing, by your neglect, to forfeit what you could otherwise give to the people that you say that you love. It is the most selfish thing to not pursue your potential. Because if you did, it'd be the most selfless thing you ever did. And I remember during an interview, not to go on all these tangents to give you the most rich context for Tarkaux, in an interview for the promotional version of my job, which I was trying to shadow a superintendent who's the leader of a school district to learn how to lead within Ratliff University. And I remember he said, he threw equity out the window during the interview, and he said, the person, it's between you and one other person. And they're a 27-year veteran, so they've worked in the school district for 27 years. Why should I choose you? And I was an outside candidate. And in retrospect, in hindsight, I said to myself, after they had chosen their internal candidate, and I didn't get the job, I said, how fucking selfish would I be if I had the potential to give more value, and I chose and justified it in the guise of loyalty to my organization to put 26 years of non-progression, of not increasing my value, of not trying to aspire to do, to learn, to become anything more. How fucking selfish of a person. And I said, and that's who you chose? And he sold it to me as if like people, spend their whole, he literally said this, he's a fucking clown. People spend their entire life, he said this, he said people will spend their entire life, and he was trying to, sell me on what a dream it is to be this motherfucker's assistant. They spend their entire life to have this opportunity. And I said, and in hindsight, people spend their entire life to be your fucking assistant. He's just fucking arrogant dumbass. But that's the kind of people that you deal with working in school districts, are those people. You get the arrogant and the stupid, and then you get the most humble. And the person who was the former superintendent of Laguna Beach Unified, who it would have been an honor to shadow, oh my God, he was a class act. He was a made man. He was a man of dignity, integrity, God, leadership, and it was evidenced to me and so easily observed by all of the people whom he oversaw, because you set the standard for your team. And so when other people would act with courtesy, with respect, with humility, with patience, with showing up correct, with honor, you're just like, all they are is a mirror to the leader. And so in the school district that I'm currently and soon to be formally working for, it's the way leadership works is top down. So when you have a leader who's an arrogant coward, that is paramount amongst the leadership within the organization. So, but the whole reason I share with you all of that story is that is and has been my journey with pursuing entrepreneurship, with going for it, is you are constantly in imposter syndrome. You're constantly feeling like a failure because you're earning fucking nothing and all your peers have 6-figure jobs. You're constantly feeling like a fucking loser from failure after failure after failure, from this business and this concept and this idea and this, launch not working, no one giving a fuck about you, your views, your videos, content, whatever, marketing, getting no views, you're not monetizing, you're not getting these sales, you're not a lot, being in a position to flex and to show whatever clout and things like this that other people are able to advertise from the paths that they've chosen, and you're constantly wondering the whole time, is it worth it? Should I continue down this path? Should I give up? Should I quit? And you feel like you've quit already. You feel like you've given up, and you feel like a failure because you've returned to the rat life. You've returned to getting a 9-to-5, and the whole time you hold on, man, and you just don't give up. And it's like, what an exciting, adventurous life. Like, what would happen if you just continue to hold on just a little longer? One of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given in my life by that angel, Amanda White, lovely British woman who I met in Croatia. She said, you've already been through the pain of it all. You've already been through the pain of it all. What if you just held out a little bit longer? And thank God for such an angel of a voice like that, because otherwise I would have given up. I would have quit. I would have threw in the towel on this. So it's all food for thought. But if any of that resonated, and if you can touch on any of those points, whether you're in a season of isolation, a season like I am of transition, or you're under fucking investigation and litigation like I am right now with my lovely, soon to be former place of employment, and you're on your walk with God, you've had the courage to go for it, or you're thinking about going for it. I will say this because it reminds me of an interview with Greene, who's a bodybuilder he might be returning, I don't know. There's a thing that popped up on my social media. But he said, is it worth it? He said, when, you're putting in those, 2-a-days and I forget all of the specifics that he said, but it was all a part of the grind. Like when you're doing all this work and there's no, fruit of your labor, when you're having no support, your videos aren't getting any virality, your likes, nobody gives a fuck about you. Is it worth it? And then I think this interview was after his Arnold Classic victory. And he said, yes, fuck yeah, dude. And so I think of that. What do you have to lose by going for it? What do you have to lose by not giving up? What could you create? Who could you become? What lives could you impact? Who could your kingdom spouse be, right? If you just have the courage to try, to fail, to continue to keep going, to continue to have the courage to love as yourself, not a fictitious character that you're pretending to be. So, good. To begin, think as you like, but behave like others. And I put my first note was smile, nod, and do whatever the fuck you were going to do anyway. And you have to do that, man. You have to be very careful about the people who you share your dreams and goals with, because I learned this firsthand the hard way, that if you share your goals, dreams, and ambitions with the wrong people, they have the potential to do the most dangerous and irresponsible thing, which is these motherfuckers could plant the most sinister of seeds. It's not a seed of belief, it's not a seed of possibility, it's a seed of doubt, it's a seed of fear. The seed is a projection of their fear, of their cowardice, of their lack, of their cowardice, of non-pursuit. Because I say courage to pursue, the opposite. So when a person chose to quit, to give up, to settle for a mediocre relationship, to not pursue their goals, passions, dreams, to not quit their job and go for their entrepreneurial vision, journey, to not have the courage to do what God has called them to do, especially if you're a man. And I say man, and I specify that because it's your prerogative to be the leader of your family, to be the leader of your woman, right? And if you don't have the courage to fucking go for it, how can they look to you to lead? Food for thought. I was saying it's the most sinister of seeds because it could get you your success or your courage to pursue your success. What is that to the spectator of life, to the victim, to the one who gave up? It's a spotlight. I learned this from Greg Plitt. Your success is a spotlight shining down on someone's missed opportunity. Think of it this way. You and another person, you went to college together, you went to high school together. You had the same beginning as them, if not worse. You were worse off than how they started. And you achieved this. And they are continuing to try and continue to progress, right? Once you pass where they are in life, they'll hate you for it. And the reason is because you're a reflection of the progress of the person they could be. Because you started from the same fucking place and you're here and you're pursuing your dream, you're going for your goal, your vision, you're having the courage to do what God has called you to do. This is the woman who's a reflection of your standard that you've been able to attract, right, to keep. And and so they look at you and then they look at their partner and their standard, right? And their cowardice, because all you are is a mirror to the man they could have become. And so they'll fucking hate and despise you for it. So when I say be careful about who you share your dreams with, it's very important that you just let your actions do the talking for you, because people who will come across like they're trying to do you a favor, they could be planting seeds of, and you can just, it's so easy to discern this. It's in the be carefuls. It's in the what if this happens? And it's in the you should, maybe not do this. If it's not yes, if it's not fuck yes energy, if it's not how can I help, that's an amazing idea, they don't belong in your garden. They're fucking weeds. They're parasites. Kick them the fuck out. Prune them. Because what's going to happen is that seed of doubt, if you fucking believe that bullshit for yourself, you are fucked, right? And it's not to say that everything people say is just going to be the end all be all of you. You know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but fuck you. You know, ow. But the problem lies when you believe what other people are saying to you. And so that can be beneficial if they're saying positive things and you believe the uplift, especially like me, who my love language is words of affirmation, and I have a lifetime of that cup being empty. So it's very hard for me to take compliments from other people and actually put weight into them from a lifetime of not being told those things, not being told you're so smart, not being told you're so handsome, not being told, you know, you're so whatever. But people just not, I don't want to be arrogant and saying paying credit where it's due, but most people, they're very quick to criticize something that they don't like, but most people, because they live in a state of lack, they don't pay credit to something that they do like. And so it costs you nothing to give somebody a compliment, to give someone encouragement. But people who live in a state of lack, scarcity, they view life in the lens of, if you're winning, it means I'm losing. They see life as a zero-sum game. As in, if you take this much of the pie, that only leaves me with this. Not understanding that your success, physical success, relational success, if that's a thing that can be achieved, because you can have a relational success with yourself or with your relationship with God, your spiritual journey, your journey of enlightenment or personal development, or your business, financial accolades, that your success in any of those endeavors in no way whatsoever inhibits, diminishes, makes less than this other person's in the fucking slightest. That's called abundance. But most people don't live in a state of abundance, they live in a state of lack. So I'm setting the scene with all of that. Be careful about who you share your dreams with. I love this quote. Retire into the sanctuary of your silence, and if you sometimes allow yourself to break it, do so under the aegis of a discreet few. So that gives it that exemplifies what I just said. That be very careful of the people who are really in your intimate garden. Most people don't have more than 5 friends. If you have more than 5 friends, if you have more than 10 friends, you probably have 0 friends. And when I say real friends, I saw this thing, it's like there are 3 different types of friends. There are roots, and there are like branches, and there are leaves, right? Most people have leaves of friends. They don't have the roots of friends who are like the 3 a.m. emergency, I need you, and they're there. Most people don't have a single fucking person. I have, in my life, probably one. It's my older brother, Tamer. I probably have one fucking person in my life who's like, no matter what, he would be there. If I called him, and I've done this before, where my car shattered, like my old car, my Mustang that I had a flat. I rode on it anyway, and so it messed up not only the tire, but also the wheel. And I called him on his day off at like 4 or 5 something in the fucking morning, and then he woke up, drove all the way to literally my fucking savior. And how many people do you have like that in your life, where no matter fucking what, they would be there? And I'd put my mom in that category too. I'd put my siblings in that category. But other than that, particularly in California, dude, I got maybe one other person. Less than the number that I can count on one hand. So I love that quote. Retire into the sanctuary of your silence, and if you sometimes allow yourself to break it, do so under the aegis, or maybe that's a guise, of a discreet view. A discreet few. Be careful who you share good news with. Be careful who you share how you truly feel with. Most people, they'll use the information against you, particularly with the coworkers that you have who are all wearing a mask, right? Be aware, be perspicacious, be discerning. People who are in your life, they're not all flowers. Some of them are fucking weeds that need to be pruned. Some of them are wolves in sheep's clothing looking to get something from you. If you want to test this, stop texting people first. And there's a good quote, and see how many dead plants you've been watering. Okay. I love this. It's in Latin. It says, Bene vixit qui bene latuit. And I love it because it shows the translation, but then I went back and I could actually read it in Latin. And I could read, okay, this is 3rd person singular, this is present tense, this is what this word means. It was so cool. Because I had to teach myself Latin when I was in undergrad in order to fucking graduate within my degree, because I got my degree in classical civilization. And so you had to either do Latin or Greek, and Latin at least had, English letters, so I said, I'll do that one. Greek was a bunch of symbols. That means he lives well who conceals himself well. He lives well, he who conceals himself well. It's all about playing a mask. But the whole thing is think as you like, but behave like others. So the whole idea of this law of power is to conceal your true thoughts, desires, which is actually an incredibly powerful tactic when you're playing the work courtier. As in you have your ulterior motives, but you're playing this very agreeable courtier to all of your superiors in order to play them like a fiddle, in order to rise in your, rat life fucking positions, in order to accelerate your, ascent as a successful slave. If you conceal your actual beliefs and, morals and all these things when you're surrounded by fucking idiots all day and you're laughing at their dumbass jokes and you're surrounded by these cowards and these just, I'm saying all these negative things because every person watching this can resonate with that. When you're surrounded by fucking idiots who are in these positions of authority, you have to do that. You have to conceal yourself. You have to enact that quote from Johnny Depp where everybody wants to be themselves but they can't. Because you work in a school district system in California and you're actually aligned with conservative traditional values, you'll find out very quickly your progression halted unless you play their stupid fucking game, unless you be that courtier, unless you enact this, he lives well who conceals himself well, right? Because all these motherfuckers will talk about their, the 50th vaccination that they got. They'll all talk about, their sleepy Joe Biden, support. But the second you talk about the oppression or how all this is bullshit or how, I remember one of my directors in one of my former school district, I was telling her about the bullshit of, COVID. And she was like, the reason that, she's buying into all it, she's like, because I align with science. And she literally said it like that. And this is a fucking director. And I said, you're such a fucking idiot. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating how the stupidity is, irregardless of title and rank, but he lives well who conceals himself well. As in, for me to succeed in such a fucking stupid environment, I had to be agreeable to these idiots. And so every person watching this who has managers and superiors and these people in positions of authority who literally dictate your progression within that environment, that you've exemplified that all too well. Another quote: wise men should be like coffers with double bottoms, which when others look into being opened, they see not all that they hold. And I thought that was so cool. But my note on that was be careful who you share your dreams with. And so it's cool. Imagine you open a coffer and then you get to see all of the value, perceptively, but there's actually a double bottom. So there's all of this other value and knowledge and wisdom and beliefs that are, inside. And so I learned that from, his name was Wendell, the first school district I worked for. He said, you need to, and this is great advice, to not share any personal information with anybody, with anyone you work with. As in, you're here, this is 8 hours of your fucking day, 9 hours, for the lunch that you don't get paid for. And once you leave here, that's your actual life. This is a means to that fucking end. And most people get them confused. Most people, they live their life to work in the shit life, the shit office that they have to go to, right? Confusing that, no, this is a means to pay for my life. Not I'm going to work, consume, die. That's the rat life, right? When you get stuck in the rat life forever, you've lost sight of why you're there. You've lost sight of why you're there in the first place. That's why it feels so forced and it's so much push motivation to get out of fucking bed. And you feel your body aching. You feel the depression lurking. It's not pull motivation. Because you've lost your why. Your why has gone fuzzy. You've forgotten the people that you're doing this for. You've forgotten your mission, your vision, the calling that God has, the work he's called you to do. And you've gotten complacent. You've gotten comfortable. Next thing you know, it's 5, 10, fucking 50 years from now and you're in this miserable state for that exact reason. And when you share the information with people, that's a huge fucking mistake because you've confused it. You've lost sight that this is a means to that end. The means to the end, right? And so I remember I played that so well when I worked at Target, where I knew it was a seasonal employment, but I knew I was graduating from school. So I sold them like I loved the job, all my managers and superiors, and because I didn't lose sight of why the fuck I was there. No, this was a means to pay for my room and board. That's it. I was in an apartment at the time, and my meals. So I'm not here to get a fucking career as a cashier. No, thank you. And why? How? Because I didn't lose sight of why I was there in the first place. That's how you get fucked and trapped in the rat life forever. Is you get comfortable, you get complacent, you get distracted. you share all of your personal information with these people who suck you in to be a slave, to be used as a good cattle, to incentivize you with a fucking carrot, like you're a donkey with a cart behind you, chasing this illusion of a carrot in the form of, say, a promotion. I did the math in Rich Dad Poor Dad where I said it's an illusion of progression and growth that you're chasing, because I did the math. It was like by your annual promotion, the annual increase to your salary, the difference in pay. You can do the math on this by dividing the numbers of what you make now versus what you would make then. The number for my position in my work environment was just over 4%. And I said, that's 4% on paper. Okay, what is it after it gets taxed? Okay, it was a little less. What is it after, and then I brought into play inflation, which ranged from 3%, and then a couple of years ago it was all the way to fucking 9%. But I said, let's be conservative, let's do the 3%. And I said, okay, that equates to, it was 1 point something percent of an increase. Okay, after working there for an entire year, cool. And then California is legally, I have a note that I just threw away, it's in my trash can right now. They're legally allowed, legally by law, to increase your rent every year by a fixed percent, by no more than like 8%. And I did the math on what that would be. And then lo and behold, I wasn't earning anything else. It was actually my cost of living had increased, even with my pay that had increased. And so I was actually not in the same place, not moving forward. I was regressing. I was regressing in my progression. But that's not how it looks on paper. It looks like you're moving forward. That's how they get you spinning the fucking wheel, chasing the cheese in the rat maze for a lifetime. And the way that you break that cycle is understanding that you are a rat in the maze, right? You're a slave. You're a cattle on the farm that are there to be fucking used and discarded. We had an employee that worked there for over 40 years. 2 weeks after they retired, nobody talks about them anymore. There's no legacy you're leaving behind. Understand that. It's 40 years of you wasting your fucking life to wake up and say, wow, all of my dreams, all of my goals, all my ambitions, what God has called me to do, all of that got forfeited from a fucking trap, from a rat life trap, from the movie The Matrix. They used them for their body heat. They use you for your time and for your energy, right? With pieces of paper that you will work and slave away for a lifetime for a finite amount of, that they can print an infinite amount of. Slavery never went away. It's called the middle class. They just changed the name. Slavery, how it used to be, I won't pay you, but I'll give you free housing, free medicine, free food, and free mates, other slaves. All they did was say, okay, now we'll pay you, we'll charge you for the housing and for the food and for the mates, brothels, OnlyFans, and for the medicine, right? Particularly fucking healthcare in the United States. Charge you for all these things. Slavery never fucking went away, and you'll have little, if anything, left over, and then we'll make your interest rate on the credit cards, because you'll need to go into debt just to, pay for basic cost of living. A fucking one-bedroom apartment. And so we have you in debt, which is what slavery was. It was debt. And so now it's death by debt, and it's slavery in debt in perpetuity. And that's the game. And so they sell you on a sticker price of, no, it's just a few grand in debt. But then with your cost of living is so high, all you can afford to pay is the minimum payments. So a 10K debt gets perpetuated over a decade. And it's compounded when you do the student loans and the mortgage and the car financing and the credit cards and the insurance required and the interest accruing on all this and all of your other cost of living, and you add a family on top of that. That is how you get fucked for life. That is the rat life. Do you see the importance of the mantra that anyone can escape, the necessity to escape? All right. So just be careful. Be careful who you share your dreams with. Be very careful about being comfortable, because otherwise that is not a possibility. That is a certainty. That is what your future will look like. If you're not on the way, if you're not working every day towards your escape, towards your freedom, you are guaranteeing your slavery for a lifetime of you and your family and all the people you say you care about. To continue. Good quote, long quote. It's going to end. Perfect time. Well, okay, we're back in. Finally, and most brilliantly of all, he disguised his ideas while insinuating them at the same time. It is an old but powerful trick. You pretend, to disagree with dangerous ideas excuse me, but in the course of your disagreement, you give those ideas expression and exposure. I love this quote. You seem to conform to the prevailing orthodoxy, but those who know will understand the irony involved. You are protected. It's the oldest trick in the book. And the quote, the parentheses that I put was like a jester at court. So the only way back in time, during, say, Renaissance or during Shakespearean times, what have you, that truth could get discussed openly and talked about was in the form of a jester, the comedian. They could expose all of the abuse, all of the atrocity, all of the injustice by the king or by the queen or by the monarch, but then they would play it off as ha ha ha. And they wouldn't be executed for it because it's just a play. It's just a comedy. It's just a joke. They're protected. It literally is this quote. That's why I wrote the note. But all the people with a discerning eye in the audience, they enact that. You seem to conform to the prevailing orthodoxy, but those who know will understand the irony involved, as in they'll be able to see the parallels, the metaphors, the similes. Those are good words that I use. They'll be able to see through you calling out the oppression that we've all been fucking subject to by this dictator, by this tyrannical leader. And so that's some of the only people who had the ability to speak the truth were poets, who wrote in, comedies and who wrote tragedies and who wrote works like that. Or the comedian, the fucking jester at court. So now, and this is the importance of freedom of speech, we're able to call out all the bullshit. I saw a great video. I'm so glad that I remember this. He said, how to know if something is a psyop, how to know if something is a psychological operation, is if they feel the necessity to silence one of the sides. He said that's how you know if it's a psychological operation. It's a fucking psyop. It's bullshit. If you need to silence the other narrative. So during the bullshit of COVID, that's exactly what they did with all social media. This has been fact checked. This is, we're deleting this, we're putting this post down, we're banning this profile. It's been fact checked. It's been fact checked. It's been fact checked. It was like one of the biggest court houses, I don't know which one, where the person prosecuting one of the motherfuckers at one of the social media outlets, they said, you silenced Harvard and Stanford educated doctors over all of this bullshit. And that's exactly what they did while they're pushing their agenda. Well, they're silencing an entire narrative, so you're not even allowed to discuss the tyranny. So what they're able to do, and then this from Andrew Tate, they're able to project a false reality because they're only allowing for you to see one side. They're making it, by controlling all these social media platforms, that this argument doesn't exist, right? So they're only allowing you to see this. So if this is all that exists, this is all that is. Do you see? So how do you know if something is bullshit? How do you know if something is a psychological operation in today's modern world where we have freedom of speech? Thank God for people like Elon Musk and Twitter, now X. Is because they do not silence a fucking narrative. If they do silence a narrative, it's bullshit. If they do silence one side of the fucking story and don't allow them to speak against the topic or challenge the views that you're, bringing up and imposing, that's all bullshit. It's all tyranny. Understand that. That's mass manipulation. It's a psychological operation. They're trying to fuck you and oppress you in some way, because otherwise they'd be very comfortable having an open forum, having a dialogue, having the public be able to challenge their views. But they don't want that, do they? They don't want you thinking for yourself. They don't want you asking too many questions. Because if you did, how would they be able to control you? To continue, if you feel irritated by the absurd remarks of two people, this is very relatable, of two people whose conversation you happen to overhear, you should imagine that you are listening to the dialogue of two fools in a comedy. I could name 1,000 of them at my soon-to-be former place of employment. You're just surrounded by fucking idiots all day. The man who comes into the world with the notion that he is really going to instruct it in the matters of the highest importance may thank his stars if he escapes with a whole skin. And who did I think of? I thought of Socrates, and I put this. Socrates arrested for impiety, corrupting the youth and sentenced to death, for getting others to dare to think for themselves. So, to reiterate, the man who comes into the world with the notion that he's really going to instruct it in the matters of the highest importance may thank his stars if he escapes with a whole skin. And that's kind of the fear that is, in the back of my mind with doing what I'm doing with this university, what I'm doing with Rat Life, is somebody who speaks the truth on a long enough time horizon. I learned this from Andrew Tate. He said, your ability to speak the truth is in direct correlation to your obscurity. Because once you get to a position and a platform, he said, there are things that you can't say. And I saw this in an interview with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, where he's doing all of the audits. He sees all of the abuse and all the corruption of the government at his level, and he wouldn't openly talk about everything that's going on. He said, you're going to get me killed. You're going to get me killed. Because that's what happens when you speak the truth. It's a recurring theme since the beginning of time, since fucking Socrates. Arrested for corrupting the youth. He was branded as corrupting the youth, impiety. As a philosopher who just invited the idea for the people to think for themselves. But what is the consequence when you think for yourself? You challenge the very society that you live in. The very society that has you under their control. That they're able to manipulate. That they're able to emotionally manipulate. That they're able to enslave. They don't want that. They don't want you filled with your own thoughts. They don't want you in a mind filled with clarity, with peace, with harmony, in harmony with your divinity. You in connection with your God source that's inside of you. Your power, you operating at this vibrational frequency. They don't want that. They don't want a world of love because it creates a world they cannot control. It's a quote from George L. Orwell, author of 1984. Does any of that make sense? Quote from Voltaire. If Machiavelli had a prince, so Niccolo Machiavelli, who's the primary inspiration for the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, he wrote a book called The Prince, where it's basically like a manual of how to be a prince. If Machiavelli had a prince for a disciple, the first thing he would have recommended him to do would have been to write a book against Machiavellism. And that enacts the quote, think as you like, but behave like others. So you're concealing, your beliefs, but you're projecting this false version of yourself as a power play. It's all a game. The game of power is just that. It's a game. It's a ruse to get people talking and discussing. And, they do this so well with the distractions through social media. They get you talking about bullshit that doesn't matter. They get you arguing amongst yourselves like good, common, enslaved peasants while they fuck you. While they continue with their agenda. Open your fucking eyes, man. Wake up. But you know what the beauty about this university and Tarek Hawks and Rat Life is? We're all walking each other home. We're all walking each other from these low vibrational states of guilt, of shame, of fear, of anger. All places that we've all been. Places that some of you might now be reciting. And we're all trying to walk each other to ourselves. Who we are, original, imperfect, with love. In the absence of the fucking masks and the layers and all of the bullshit that is not us. To get us in harmony with who we are. To find ourselves and our God-like selves again. So if that's me corrupting the youth and being sentenced to death for impiety, motherfucker, I have no courage to die on that basis. To continue. Sorry. When you go into society, leave behind your own ideas and values and put on the mask that is the most appropriate for the group in which you find yourself. And I put to what end? To what end? To reiterate, and put on the mask that is the most appropriate for the group in which you find yourself. Leave behind your own ideas and values. That's called depression. Depression. Quote from Jim Carrey. He articulates it well. That's your body saying fuck you to this character you keep insisting on playing. When you work as a courtier in the Rat Life and you do not lose sight that this is a means to an end, it's the only way you'll be able to maintain your sanity and your mental health. If you lose sight of that, you'll find yourself in depression with your body aching, the physical symptoms from this state, and because of your soul having been on fire for so long by enacting this fucking power quote, by pretending to be a person that's not you. So I put to what end, right? That quote from Alain Delon, which is so good to almost end the lecture with. I've suffered often, I've been wrong sometimes, so I'm not perfect, but I loved. And there's that quote that Mufasa to Simba, he says, you've forgotten yourself, so you've forgotten me. When you stop loving yourself, because you stop loving the person who you are, because you're pretending to be someone who you're not, you'll lose that connection of love to God. Because you are part of that very divinity, part of the whole. but I loved. It was I who lived and not this fictional being created by my pride, or this fictitious courtier I played for the sake of the rat life, right? So I put to what end, man? To what end, right? Be yourself. If you gain the whole world, you rise within the rat life, and it's at the cost of your soul. What have you gained? But to each their own, your choice. Food for thought only. Do not throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Matthew 7:6. That exemplifies the law. Think as you like, but behave like others. So I learned this from Jordan Peterson. If you're telling someone something, your pearls, your gold, value that you have to give other people, and they're not listening, stop talking to them. Stop talking to them. Why? It'll make you second guess your value. And I would do that all the time, where I would converse with someone who made me feel non-valuable, unconfident being myself, unconfident with my wisdom or knowledge, uncomfortable in my own skin, unconfident being myself. I think I said that. And so that conditions a belief system that you're not valuable, that you're not, don't have value to offer, that you're not important, that your time isn't, of high value or of importance, but it's just something that is just, worthless. That's the casualty when you dare to do that. When you dare to give pearls to motherfuckers who aren't listening. When you're trying to save victims. When you're trying to save people who don't want to save themselves. You're constantly giving your pearls, you're giving the life raft, and they're just, you're in the rowboat with them, and you're the only one paddling, and they're not paddling, or they're paddling in the other direction. You don't give your pearls to swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. And literally, the people who, when you act like a mirror and you're full of love and all you are is a spotlight or just a mirror to somebody's, shadows and trauma and demons, they will fight the fuck out of you. I saw a beautiful video. It was of a mother cat and this tiny little cat. And it was the perfect personification of dealing someone with trauma. And every time the, big adult mother cat was getting closer, it hissed and hissed and hissed. And then it's, if you've ever seen that clip of Elsa from Frozen and that tiny little fucking dragon or whatever the hell, who when she gets close to it, it turns into fire, and then she gets a little closer and even tries to do a firebolt at her, and then she's still getting closer, and then, and I've always thought about that with people who I've, loved, that they're just wishing like I did when I was younger, that somebody wouldn't give up on them. They would just try one more time. And people who have that, trauma from the past, who have that, they've only been with people who have offered them conditional love, who've made them feel so hard to love, and who have left them. And so they've, solidified and fortified these walls, and they'll fight and fight and fight you because they perceive your genuineness as bullshit and as manipulation, as you're just gonna leave me. This is the belief system, like everybody else. You're just going to use me and sleep with me and then fucking bounce like everybody else. And so they'll fight and fight and fight and push and push and push and emotionally project all of that bullshit onto you. But I've learned that if you just continue to be consistent with love, you can only take that so far until you just have to let them go. Because until they're in a place to receive, you can't be with them. You can't save somebody who doesn't want to help themselves. You can't convince someone that you, like Gandalf, where he's like Bilbo Baggins, I'm not trying to rob you, I'm trying to help you. I'm genuine in my, presentation of unconditional love and you being worthy and deserving of that. But people who have that history and that past of, people leaving them, abandonment, being used or manipulated or, whatever. And anybody can resonate with this when you've had your heart broken, when you've been, betrayed, when you've been dumped, whatever, when you've been left for someone else. Then you build up this wall because all it is that defense mechanism. It's like, I don't want to go through that pain again. So I'm going to emotionally put up this boundary around me so nobody can hurt me again. So I would be that person who would that's why I love people who have courage and I love people who let go, because what that is you putting down those walls and it's vulnerability, which that's intimacy. If you want to know what real intimacy is, I learned this from Terry Crews. He said it's not sex. That's sometimes the most non-intimate thing with people. That's just you being naked, but that's not you being really truly vulnerable and really truly open to honesty, and that's you being raw. when people have the courage to just be open, to be honest, to speak the truth, their truth. And I love that so much, because that's courage. Because most people in this world, they enact this law, unfortunately. They think as you like but behave like others. They don't, they wear a mask perpetually. They don't think and act how their heart truly feels, you know? So it's unfortunate, because then they have to pretend their entire life to be, you know, pretend to be perfect when they're not perfect. You know, they chase the validation, recognition, approval from others, when all they're really seeking is to be loved as themselves. They're just seeking the unconditional love, you know, but that only comes from when you have the courage to be open to receiving it. And you can't receive something that you're not willing to, you know, have the courage to. I don't want to butcher the finishing of that, but how can you get something that you don't feel for yourself? If you don't love yourself, right? If you don't harbor that emotion, how can you get love from anybody else? It's the same thing. You can't give what you don't have, right? You can't, period. To continue, I know I butchered that, but you understand my fucking point. Last one. Image, the black sheep. Keep your differences in your thoughts and not in your fleece. If you're the black sheep, keep your differences in your thoughts, right? But not in your fleece. As in, don't be a Socrates getting murdered by speaking the truth. No, fuck all that. Speak the truth. Have the courage to be yourself, man. Have the courage to be authentically you. Because you know what the consequence of that is? You're going to find people who actually love you for you. I know, it's crazy. You're going to find people who are so stoked, so willing, so encouraged and hyped, and they want to help you. They want to give you money. They want to give you the opportunities. They want to date you, right? You will never find those people unless you have the courage to be seen as yourself, as who you are, not a fucking character that you're pretending to be. No, they want the perfectly imperfect. That's what we all want. We all want real intimacy. Real intimacy is me showing you all my flaws, all my insecurities, all my, you know, demons, perceptively, and you loving me just as I am, in spite of it all, and vice versa. That's called unconditional love, right? Loving somebody without condition of anything, any illusion of perfection, which is all bullshit. Because you'll find everyone's fucking weird, man. Everyone, we're all a little mad here, right? From Alice in Wonderland, it's so true. Everyone's a fucking weirdo behind closed doors when they feel safe to what? Let go, to be themselves. But they spend their whole life doing what? Pretending to be somebody that they're not. For what? To what end? What is rat life? What is Tara Cowkes? Believe in. Anyone can escape. It starts with belief and the courage to pursue. Courage to let go, to be you, to wear no masks, to be vulnerable, raw, intimate, real. And with that is rat life we are all gonna make. See you guys next time.